welcome to another episode of Wine Appreciation with Journeys and Wines. And today, we got toys, lots and lots of toys. But not just toys, these are tools of the trade. Now, this is not the length and breadth of all the tools of the trade, because if it was, this whole table would be full, and we'd need a lot more than the 5 minutes I have to talk about them. But these are just a few things that I've picked out and highlighted that I think make the service of wine better and the appreciation of wine that little bit more. Now, first thing, starting right at the top, very, very important tool is your apron. Now, as basic as it may sound, wine is a messy affair. If it splatters, it can damage your clothes, sometimes even permanently. So a very useful thing to have is an apron. Keeps you safe, keeps you clean, and keeps your laundry bill down more than anything else. First and most important tool, the waiter's friend. We've talked about this before, so I won't go into it at length, but basically the most simple way to get into a bottle of wine. I've already pre-opened this bottle of wine because we're not going to spend too much time talking about how to use a waiter's friend. But what I will highlight is an alternative to the waiter's friend, and it's the Ach so opener. Ach so is derived from the German word I understand, loosely. My German is not great, that says I understand it. And it's a very basic tool. It's got a pincer with one long arm and one short arm. And its job is quite simple. It basically grips either side of the cork on the inside of the bottle, and then you twist to open it, and the end result is that the cork sits between that over there. Now, this is very useful if you have a brittle cork or you're worried about the cork getting damaged. So if you want to open a bottle of wine with as minimum intrusion to the cork as possible, it's a very useful tool to have. Now, if, for example, you have a bottle of wine that maybe you don't want to open, but you want to taste, and this is a situation that comes up fairly often if you're, for example, a collector and you have a series of older wines and you want to see how they're aging, or if you're in a restaurant setting, for example, and you've got one bottle of very expensive wine that you sell by the glass, it opens on a Friday, no one else opens it again from another week, the wine gets damaged, and you throw it away because it's oxidized. So they came up with a very cool tool, it's called a Caravan. Disclaimer, it isn't very cheap, so not for the light of heart, but if you're very serious about your wine, it's a very cool tool to have. Basic mechanism is that it has this inside it, it's argon gas. So you buy the canisters separately and you fill it up with argon gas. And argon gas is a neutral gas which protects the wine from oxygen. So basically the oxygen can't penetrate beyond the argon and then therefore doesn't create the microoxidation which allows the wine to age or to develop. And I personally, in my experience, have been able to use this and tasted a wine that I used Caravan on a year after, and it tasted as fresh to me as it did the first day I opened it. Though the manufacturers themselves guarantee at least 6 weeks of freshness if you use the Caravan. The mechanism is very simple. It's got a very long needle, as you can see over here. The needle basically will penetrate the cork. So your needle penetrates the cork through there, makes a small hole, press the button, and out comes the wine, and then the gap that the wine is left is now filled up with the argon, and it keeps the wine nice and safe. Here's another tool for preservation. It's called a vacuum pump. Now, this is not nearly as effective as a Caravan, but has the very same mechanism. It comes with these rubber stoppers and this vacuum pump here. And basically how it works is that you seal it with a vacuum stopper, put the vacuum pump on top of it, and then pump out all the air. And it gives you a little ting-ting, I don't know if you can hear it, once it's full. And basically what that's done is taken out any of the air or the oxygen in between. Now, difficult thing because it doesn't stop the oxygen still coming through, and it'll delay the aging, so it's obviously better than nothing, but it's definitely not something that you can swear by or live by, and certainly not anything as effective as this, but comes in a lot cheaper. Now, let's pop. Very useful tool to have is your lappy. Now, your lappy, or your white cloth, is literally your best friend, and you will find a million different uses for it. For me, as a sommelier in service, I keep it nice and close in my pocket over here. And very rarely will I use the same lappy from one service to another because it gets filthy. It just goes to show how often you use it. Now, its uses come up quite often. If you pour a glass of wine, some of the wines come dripping down the neck, bang, nice and handy, you can wipe it. Doing some service, a little bit of a spill, bang, you can wipe it, and all those things. So, very useful, very simple thing, but very useful to have. This is a decanter. Now, a decanter is a really, really important tool for anyone who's serious about wine. We decant wine primarily for 2 reasons. One, if the wine is a little bit younger, you want to get some rapid oxidation in there because a little bit of oxygen in contact with the wine allows it to show itself quite nicely. Conversely, if the wine is rather old, you want to separate the sediment from the wine, and this does that. Now, this is a bit of a hybrid decanter. It does actually both really well. Because it has a nice long neck, it allows the wine to travel quite a bit, which allows the rapid oxidation that you want to happen if your wine is young and you want to get into as much contact as possible with oxygen. But also because it has a long neck, you can catch any of the sediment coming down. And then it's got this very wide base and this large surface area of wine that can be in contact with oxygen, which will also help in the aging or in the oxidation of the wine. I'm quickly going to decant this GFV Malbec. It's a fairly young wine, so it's not going to have much sediment, but just for purposes of demonstration, pour it down and you just want to run the wine along the neck there in a nice, rapid, smooth motion. I will leave a little bit of wine in the bottle. As I said, it's not going to be much sediment, actually. It's not going to be sediment at all in this bottle of wine. But generally, if it was an older bottle of wine, the sediment would all be sitting at the bottom there, and then a nice clean wine sitting over here, getting as much contact with oxygen as possible. Two quite cool, very useful things you have if you need to cool wine down rapidly, whether red, in a warm setting, of course, white wine, which you'll always serve cold, is a good old-fashioned ice bucket. Nothing cools your wine faster than an ice bucket. A lot of ice, pretty much a 3/4 to quarter ratio of ice to water, so it's not just ice, but the actual ice-cold water covers the surface area much fuller, and then that allows the wine to cool a little bit more rapidly. So yeah, ice bucket. But then this is a very interesting and unique innovation. It's a wine cooler made of silicone. So these silicone bags basically can live in your freezer and they stay very, very cold. Again, I've tested this myself. I get a good 6 hours of temperature out of it. Keep it in your freezer. It's nice and neat. It doesn't drip like an ice bucket does. It doesn't take as much space as an ice bucket does. Basically how it works is you open it up there, got a little chamber inside there, and you fill the chamber with a silicone bag and then you close it. And if you stick your hand in, you can immediately feel the difference in temperature. And it's quite snug. The bottle fits nice and snug in there. Nice and neat, no drips, no spills, none of that, and bang, ready for service.